Attention S&P artists, are you looking to take your business to the next level? It's time to fully systemize your studio for growth with the ultimate sales and marketing platform for S&P artists, HighLead. With HighLead, you get everything that you need to save time and effortlessly generate more consultations and bookings on autopilot. And guess what? HighLead is not just a system, but also one of the largest Google ad agencies in the world for S&P professionals. Imagine having a marketing strategy that's tailor-made for the S&P industry, driving high-quality leads right to your studio. Say goodbye to the struggle of finding the latest marketing trend. HighLead has you covered. Invested into your training? Check. Invested into your equipment and studio setup? Check. Now it's time to invest into your marketing strategy. Don't risk your marketing budget on anything else until you've experienced HighLead's growth system and Google Ads services. Don't pass on this special opportunity for listeners of the Scalp Solutions Podcast. Visit GoHighLead.com today to book a free demo now and join the hundreds of S&P artists who've embraced HighLead to thrive in their businesses. On the free no-obligation demo call, a member of HighLead's team will answer all of your questions and help you unlock the potential of your S&P studio by getting you more bookings. Visit GoHighLead.com today.
Lightning strikes, ripping through the sky. There's no place to hide, I can't escape the sound.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Scalp Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, David Santiago, and today I am super excited because this is a topic that is always brought up in the S&P industry, but not very much knowledge is made available to us S&P artists out there. So I had to tap in with the big dogs. All right. We were supposed to get the best of both worlds today, but you know, these guys are incredibly busy. So Jeff had to step out, but we got Lorenzo. And I mean, like, this is the guy right here. He's going to be the one blessing us with all the S&P specific knowledge that we need. And then we're going to tap in with Jeff for another episode because he's the man, he's the business. So I know this podcast is going to lead into other questions about how do we start our own laser tattoo removal practice, and that's when we're gonna have Jeff on. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome on to the show Lorenzo.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. From an educational standpoint, from a business standpoint, really respect a lot of what you do and what you're putting out there right now. Your podcast is growing. It's talked about in our community a lot too. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot. And I appreciate you for taking out some time from your busy schedule, especially on a Saturday. From what I heard, is your busiest day is a hot commodity. So with that being said, let's get right to it. What can you share about your background and what is it that led you to your respective career as a laser tattoo removal in the industry?
Yeah, it's a long story, but just keep it really short. My grandmother started a hair removal business, teaching hair removal electrolysis probably over, I think it's like 86 years now. My dad was one of the first people to have a laser certification school. So I just grew up in it. And when tattoo removal came out, nobody wanted to do it in our office. It was brutal. It was blood, full mask guard, everything. It was an absolute nightmare. I was 18-year-old kid. And to be honest, nobody was dumb enough to do it besides me. And I just had a passion for tattoos at a young age. I even tricked my dad into getting my first tattoos at like 16. And, so I was into it, man. I was really into it. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to make it work. I worked with a lot of doctors and just didn't feel like it was being done right until I had laser myself. And just like you, once you have these experiences and these treatments done, you kind of learn about them and you get interested in them and you're like, wait, there's a better way to do this. So I dove right in. I've been doing it for over 2 decades now. And it just became my passion, and linking up with someone like Jeff, who's a tattoo collector, and working with him on several other projects. I just started surrounding myself with really, really good people. And yeah, I just grew the business from there. And so having clinics, I've had those in the past. I've had my school, I have consulting. Now we have our new venture called Inkless. And so it's all just been kind of growing up into this point. And I think we're at a place where technology is really good, and we can give people what they want. It can make it affordable, reduce all the adverse reactions that we were norms in the past. And now we're able to do awesome things like scalp micropigmentation removal and fixing. And it's just been crazy, man. This development's been exciting.
That's awesome, man. That's outstanding. And you actually, my following question, you already answered. I was going to say what inspired you, but you said that your grandmother, and you said for 86 years, she's been in the business.
Yeah, she's passed now, but yeah, but she started our business 86 years ago, and my dad's been doing it 40 plus years. And so he's a GOAT, man. He's my real inspiration in all this, because I honestly don't know where I'd be if I, didn't find this career, or he wouldn't mentor me the way he did. And even now, he's learning tattoo removal in a new way, and he's able to help us out. So he inspires me every day to see how you could take a career and change people's lives with it, and then change your family's lives with it as well.
That's dope. So he passed down the torch to you, and now you here to, you here for the smoke. But like you mentioned earlier, you talked about S&P, and as you know, for the most part, the community, this is a S&P specific podcast, whether it be techniques or business. So I kind of want to get into that. So given your experience with developing treatment protocols, right? What unique considerations are there for S&P compared to traditional tattoo removal?
I think one, it's the application style. We look at, with any tattoo, we're looking at the application style, type of needles that are being used. We look at the pigment that is being used, saturation levels, skin types. Those are all things that I have to consider when I'm even going to approach this. For S&P specifically, it's such an, I hate saying this, but it's actually one of the easier tattoos for us to remove, mainly because the application practice, it's not going as deep into the skin. And even if it is going a little bit deeper, depending on the artist and their pressure and the style of S&P they're doing, even if it is going a little bit deeper, they're not packing ink in like traditional tattoos, where you're going over an area several times, or you're using a triple black or anything like that. So a lot of what we do with S&P, it's usually a lighter touch, and we're fixing a lot of the bad stuff. So the stuff you guys are doing, we're not seeing that. We're seeing people doing the gray wash, the megs and that kind of thing. Sometimes they're not even using that. Sometimes they're using traditional tattoo machines, and it can be really thick. But still, it's a great area of the body, great circulation. The skin is thin. So what we notice in tattoo pigments is that they tend to settle deeper in the dermis over time. So if you have a 10-year-old tattoo, that black ink has a lot of carbon and heavy molecules in it. And so what that does is settles deeper in the dermis. So no matter where your artist is putting it, that ink travels. You've seen it, on your own tattoos and my tattoos. Those crisp lines, they tend to get a little fuzzy over 10 years. That ink is, I think we had a thumbs up thing there with the Zoom, but
you got
I use a lot of hand motions. I'm going to keep my hands down.
That's those are your settings, man. You set yourself.
I know. I just did the software update before I got on here.
That's
so
awesome.
I won't do any more thumbs up, but
that's all good.
Yeah, man, it's really about the saturation levels and how it's being put in and where that ink is settling. And when you have a thin scalp area, it doesn't have much room to go. And so with our lasers, we're able to control the distance, we're able to control the aggression, and we're able to control, how wide and deep our beam goes. And so we're able to pretty much evaporate that pigment pretty easily.
Now, are you guys using the same exact machine for S&P client as you would for traditional tattoo art removal?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We use Pico Way by Candela. I can't say enough about how amazing that technology is, and compared to what we've used in the past. And I've built protocols for over 25 different lasers. I've worked for Quanta, I've worked for Cynosure, I've done training for all these companies. But this is the one that I use for my training, and it's the one I use in all of our clinics because it does have the ability to have a wide range of settings that I can make specific protocols for SMP, for microblading, micropigmentation, traditional tattoo styles. I also can have a range of settings that I can use for specific skin types. So no matter if you're skin type 6, dark, African-American, Afro-Canadian, Haitian, Jamaican, anybody in those skin tones, I can treat them and be very safe with it. And then I can be very safe with the lighter skin tones and other skin tones that might be more prone to hyperpigmentation based on ethnicity as well.
Got you. So now, if you don't mind, I just want to backtrack to the previous question that I asked you, because I know you said there's a different protocol for when you're dealing with a client who has SMP, right? But and for the most part, and I understand, you know, the good SMP at least that you're talking about that needs to be moved is a different protocol. But we do see some clients that are coming in and they're what we call are botched jobs, where it's like heavily concentrated and saturated pigment. It almost looks like it's a traditional tattoo. Now, would that still be a different procedure, even though it's the same technique, like the individual like impressions being made, and not so much like the packing in as you would with a traditional tattoo?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, it's basically like removing a stippling tattoo. So how I understand some pigments for micropigmentation and scalp micropigmentation is they have different dilution levels. And so you can get darker, you can get lighter, you can get wash, you can get all those different dilution levels. Right. And based on the company you're going with, and I hear a lot of people say like SMP pigments are just tattoo pigments straight up. And they're absolutely kind of correct, I guess. But not every tattoo black is the same either. There's probably 10 different blacks out there. There's, heavy blacks, there's triple blacks. Dynamic just came out with one called
another one. Yeah.
Super Blackout or something like that, man. I seen that on Instagram the other day. I'm like, please stop making these things harder to remove. But again, so it really comes down to that. So if you are using traditional tattoo pigment to do stippling work on the scalp, they take longer to remove. That's it. That's the basic, because you're using a more heavily concentrated black pigment.
Got you. Can you explain how laser removal works specifically for scalp micropigmentation, and how many sessions are usually involved?
Yeah, I mean, I like saying, I like pointing to certain clients that I'm getting one treatment and done. And that happens, I would say about 25% of the clients that come in, it's a one treatment done. And that's the gray wash, the lightening. There's some clients that need anywhere up to 4 with traditional SMP. And then when we're talking about them using more traditional machines for tattooing or traditional pigments for tattooing that are more commonly done on body art, those can take up to like 5 or 6 sometimes. I have one guy right now, we're probably up to, I think, 6 treatments on him. And what happened was that they did traditional methods, traditional machine. I think it was actually a rotary machine.
It was a mag.
Yeah, no, not even a mag. It was just like a traditional liner, and they just put deep liner in there. And what happened was it blew out. And so now you have all this traditional lines, and then you also have all the blowout to go with it. So the first part to go away is the blowout. He's very excited, but we still have some areas of it. And then he's also skin type 6. He's from Jamaica. And so what happens is now I have to be a little bit less aggressive with my settings, because we also don't want to affect the melanin. We don't want to affect the basal cell layer or the germinative layer, where people in my skin type are darker, and where our bodies produce melanin at. So we have to be very careful with it. And so it can take a little bit longer depending on the skin type. But yeah, I would say probably, you're in that range. There was another part to your question. I'm sorry.
How many, you answered it. How many sessions does it usually take? But you said about 20 to 25%, you can get it done in one session.
Yeah. And those are the gray wash ones. Those are the ones that have the botch jobs and stuff like that. And then we have other clients too that, they still have hair and they maybe are filling in density and stuff like that. Their hairline continues to recede. And so what happens is they have the SMP still like out here on this traditional hairline, but their normal hairline is kind of reducing. So I'm actually have clients where I've probably seen maybe 7 or 8 times, but it's once every year or something like that. And I'm just pushing that hairline back for them so that they can, still have that density, but not have that tattooed, line there.
Gotcha. And you know what? I didn't have this question here for you, but I just thought of it as you're talking about hairline. So here's something that's usually spoken about when we're talking about laser removal. We tell, and I do it myself, and this is just by the passing down, the receiving of the information and just like passing it along, is that you kind of want to inform the clients like, hey, if you go get laser removal, you got to be careful, because what it can do is it can burn, the little hair that you do have, and now you can further the balding. Is that a fact, or is that a myth?
So it's based on the settings that person is using. And not to get too technical, we have something called spot size, and spot size controls the depth of the beam. So if I can create a deeper depth where I'm concentrating the heat a little bit deeper and not actually firing it so that it's absorbing exactly into the hair, then I won't have that problem. So it's all about settings. It's about knowing what your settings are. If I go in there with a very superficial spot size, let's say the client's hair is, it's a dry season like the winter, and I'm doing very aggressive fluence, which is our energy or how aggressive we're being with the amount of heat we're putting in the skin. Yeah, you can definitely break hair. And if the rejuvenation level is very low, so every part of our body, hair grows at different stages, anagen, tatagen, catagen, there's several other subcategories as well. They all grow at different stages. So if I go and do like hair removal or something on someone's bikini line or underarms, that rejuvenation is going to be very quick. But if I do it on something like the eyebrows or the top of the head, that rejuvenation could take, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, depending on the moisture content in the skin, depending on how many of those hairs were in that, anagen stage. So a lot of that has to do with it. And that's basic hair removal. When it comes to tattoo removal, though, our pulse duration, or how long we leave that heat in the skin, is 1/1,000,000th or 1/1,000,000,000th of a second, depending on if you're doing pico laser or Q switch or nano laser. And so pico laser has made it better for this because it's only leaving the heat in for 1/1,000,000th of a second. And that doesn't leave it in there long enough to either break the hair or go deep enough to the follicle to cauterize it at the papilla, which is the base gland. So what we're doing with pico is far safer. But yeah, I'm definitely hesitant when I have a client who's, really passionate about keeping the hair that they have currently. And I don't want to make the problem that they were trying to address any worse. So that's why sometimes we'll have guys where we'll just do the front. We won't keep going into the hair. We'll say, hey, you have hair there. It still has density. It still has a purpose of having that SMP, unless it's totally botched and they're like, I just want to go bald. Obviously, we have those options as well. But when it's somebody who's like, hey, I like to have the hair I have, I just, don't want to lose any more of it, then we take precautions. We can do different settings and so on. So you're not going to break the hair. The people that break the hair the most are using the cheap lasers they get from Alibaba or something like that. And I've seen courses, man. I've seen SMP courses. You'll take my course and they'll give you, for $5,000, I'll teach you how to do SMP removal, and you'll get a little laser. And if it fits on table, it's gonna have a very small spot size. Even though they say you can pull it back and the diameter of the beam gets bigger, that's not always the case. You're just diluting the beam. With these professional equipment that we use from Quanta and Cynosure and Candela, these are highly developed machines, and they're going to, when I have a bigger spot size, it's not only going to make the spot size bigger, it's also going to increase my depth. And so that's the difference. If you're using a small tabletop laser, it's basically going to break the hairs. It's going to knock every one of those hairs off and crack them. And then your client's going to be like, well, you remove the hair, even though the hair's not dead, it looks like that thing's going to take a while to grow back.
And what you got when you say, and I've seen it out there, it's like, hey, I'll teach you this and you'll get this laser, a 1 day or a 2 day laser removal course, and the machine comes with it. Now, when you're talking about professional equipment, I mean, we're talking about a significant difference in pricing, right? You're talking about what they're giving in some of these classes, these BS classes price wise compared to what it is that you're using. What's the difference in money wise there? We're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I mean, money wise is a huge difference. Technology wise, also huge difference. When we are buying $250,000 laser for tattoo removal, and that's, a peak away or something like that, you're getting what you pay for. You're like, if you go buy something that costs you $3,000, you're getting what you pay for. The difference in price, it determines whether you're going to even be able to remove a tattoo or not. I'm paying, if I go buy a pre-owned piece of equipment, that there's some really great pre-owned equipment out there. You might still spend, $20,000 to $60,000 depending on the features you want.
And that doesn't necessarily make it a good piece of equipment either when you hear these numbers, does it?
I would say, it's hard to say. I don't want to get in trouble with the people that provide me lasers and they love me, but right, so these things are way overpriced. They're way overpriced. I know what they get. I built a laser on my own, and I know what it costs to build a laser. Okay. And it don't cost $250,000 to make that laser. I
see. I got you. All right. Let's not mess up,
I will say this though. The type of laser you have in a business that we do, you can get by with a really good pre-owned equipment laser as long as it has the right features, the right spot size and stuff. There's great ones out there. A lot of my students start off with that, build their business up, and then they upgrade. I rarely recommend that somebody, and I'll probably get in trouble for this too, start off with the $250,000 laser. That, unless you have a business that's thriving already, like you have a great business, if you brought in a $250,000 laser, you have a client base to already, make money off of. It's hard to recoup that up in the beginning. So there are lasers that can help you get going. There are lasers that are, when you get to a certain top, I am competing in a different level with, larger corporate companies coming into our company. So I have to have really high quality equipment so no one can say, hey, these guys aren't on our level. So it's technology. It's like being a painter that wants to have 1 million paintbrushes and every color to work with. That's who I am, because I'm seeing such a wide variety of tattoos. And then it's also about branding and marketing as well. We want to be able to brand us as being one of the best, and we need great technology to do that.
Got to keep up with the big dogs.
Got it.
So what should clients know before considering laser removal of their SMP treatment?
So first is, we want to know, and I do my due diligence. And one of the first things I ask in, my texts, they hate this because I'm like, go find out what pigment it is. There's people out there, you got somebody in a chair, you're ready to laser them, they're ready to go, they got their money out. And for me, it's really about, I need you to go find out what pigment you use so that I can go back and I can go look at the MSDS report or the SMS report or whatever it is that they have ingredient wise that I can go look at. And SMP is not it's usually just black pigments. So there's not really a lot of titanium dioxides or iron oxides, not large amounts put into that. When I get into like micropigmentation, microblading removal, there's a huge risk there, because if you look at some of the ingredients, there's, 15 different colors in there, and those colors are each different ingredients. And, it can be a science. So SMP is not that bad, but I do want to know, I do want to do a test spot. I want to know the health of the client. I also want to know their occupation. Are they someone that's going to be out in the sun all day, and that having laser tattoo removal and being in the sun don't mix very well? So maybe we schedule them at a different time of year, or maybe they can wear a hat or sunscreen, or we have to be able to have those tools available for them to have a successful heal as well. But overall, I think it's like I said, it's one of the easier ones to remove. So I don't have too many prerequisites. We want to make sure they don't have, folliculitis or any kind of, follicle, I forget the term that we use commonly, but
folliculitis.
So feel me rain from behind. Black rain. Peace student in the game. Black rain. Through the struggles and the strain. Black rain. Elements of mine. So feel the rain from behind. Black rain. Peace student in the game. Black rain. Through the struggles and the strain. Black rain. Elements of mine. To feel the rain from behind. I'm sorta like a killer devil rebel. The getaway cars are the sounds of the bass and the treble. Cause I get into mine able and ready.
Yeah, there you go. There is also, trying to look at the term here because I know it. I'll get back to it, but we want to make sure the skin's healthy, right? We don't want to laser over something that's healing or acne or anything like that. We want to make sure that they're fully healthy and ready to go.
Got you. So now, how about for S&P artists, right? How do we vet laser removal facilities before we recommend a client? Like, are there specific questions that we should be asking these facilities, or like, should we go and visit the facility? Like, is there something we should be looking for, before we take one of our clients and go, hey, if you want to get your S&P removed, go to Inkless.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to go meet the people, right? Like, one thing I learned with just any cosmetic tattooing is when I meet somebody who is in that profession, you can get a vibe for them. Like, do you really understand what we're doing? This goes back to like, even with tattoo artists, when we used to go to tattoo conventions and stuff like that, and we'd see people there in their white vest and their suit coats and their, they just don't fit into that crowd. Right. And so no one's coming, they're sitting there bored all day. It wasn't till I started doing an internship for tattooing and learning the artist and, taking courses online and trying to learn everything I possibly could about tattooing before I realized, okay, now I can converse with these artists. We can talk on the same level. We can talk about pigments. We can talk about styles. We could talk about all that stuff. And I didn't really get good at tattoo removal until I started learning about how tattoos are applied. So if you go into a place and they know nothing about S&P, they know nothing about the products, the type of pigments that are out there, they don't, know but somebody who's had it done. They haven't, took a course. And in fact, I like taking courses for S&P too. Billy DeCola has an online course that I've taken before. I'd love to, see who you recommend, because I'm planning on taking a course this summer. But I really want people to go in and learn about the application process, learn about what they're doing, put yourself in there, even if you're not going to do it. I mean, if you don't speak the language, then you don't know, where to go or how to navigate that world. So that would be one thing. Learn about the process, make sure they know about the process. And then as far as equipment goes, there's a wide range of great lasers out there, but make sure they have something that has a larger spot size, make sure that it's FDA approved, see that it's a popular piece of equipment used by other clinics. Before and after photos are always a plus. Those type of things are what you really want to look into before sending your clients to someone. And you're recommending somebody that's an extension of you, so I have to recommend people, my students, when they go buy equipment, I have to know who I recommend is going to treat them well. That equipment's going to be work well, because that becomes my problem and my reputation on the line. So it's very important. Go meet the people, see what they're about.
Got you. Great, man. Great info. Appreciate that. Now, how about this? And this is also another common one that I hear, different stuff. And this is coming from artists. This is the first time, aside from the conversations we've had offline, that I get this information out there. And is, how long should I tell a client to wait after getting laser removal before they can come and get S&P? Because what we're starting to see more often is a client will go get S&P, they got botch work. Now they finally find an artist that's a professional, knows what they're doing, and they're like, this is who I want to get my S&P done with. But they got to go through some sessions of laser removal, but they're also very desperate to get the good S&P back on. What should that grace period be like before we can see them as a client?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, minimum after we laser somebody, tissue takes about 6 weeks to heal, minimum. I would like to have at least 12 weeks before you go get that put back on. I know it's a long time for a lot of people. I know they want to get going, and then they have to live with that little bit of time where there's no tattoo there anymore. With any kind of like micropigmentation, scalp pigmentation, it's a little bit less aggressive of a treatment, but I'm always going to bet on the safe side. I don't want to be the next mistake that person made. Anytime someone comes and sees me, it's because they've made a mistake, or they chose the wrong person. So I'm not getting people that are excited. They're like, hey, I need to make sure this works because I've already spent money here. I spent money here. I'm going to go spend more money after this too. So I need to make sure that they're safe and effective. And that's usually how it goes. And for body art, it's the same thing. I want to say, like, I wish I can say less, time needed. And I believe truly that there is a safer, like that 6 to 8 week window would probably be good, but I'm always going to be like, if you can wait 12, please do that. And that way you're not compromising your next application.
Got it. So 12 week minimum. That's what we're looking at. To be
6 weeks minimum, 12 weeks is a safety spot.
Yeah. Got you. So now I know after, I'm not going to say just because of this interview, but what we're starting to see now, we're starting to see a lot of new artists coming into the game. And with any, just like anything that you start beginning, you have some mess up. So you're starting to get a lot of people that are coming in, even here, that they want laser removal. And now to S&P artists, right? And most of these guys, we're hustlers, right? We all want to make a little bit of money. So we're looking at it from a perspective of like, man, I got so many people coming in through this door. Like, shit, why don't I just offer my own, maybe I could start my own laser tattoo removal services. So what advice would you give an S&P artist that is looking to incorporate laser treatments into their practice?
I would definitely suggest getting good training. That's first and foremost. You find somebody who knows what we're doing. I do, of course. And again, not going back to tattooing and traditional tattooing, but there was times when I had my school, the International Laser Academy, where I had doctors and nurses and estheticians all were in my class. This day, it's S&P, it's it's cosmetic tattoo artists, it's regular tattoo artists, and esthetician. I mean, there's one of those in each and every one of my classes because they are seeing that. It's a service that they're sending out. There was times when I would go into tattoo shops when I first started my career 20 plus years ago, and I get kicked out of a tattoo shop because I was removing art and they hated it. Now they welcome me in with open arms because they're like, whoa, I've been sending this much money out the door. I need to get that in-house. So I would say first things first, get great equipment, get great training. It's not as difficult to learn as what you guys are doing, I don't think. And mainly because if you have the right settings, you have the right protocol, and a good training facility will provide you with all that stuff so that you have effective treatments and you don't hurt anybody. If you have that available to you, it's a great starting off point. There's a very short learning curve. Oftentimes people say, well, your course is kind of short. And I would love to, I've made it weeks long and no one signs up. I've made it 3 days and no one signs up. I've made it online and more hands. It's like, I've tried to accommodate everything. 2 days is the sweet spot because what I do is I keep really small class sizes and then I coach for the next 6 months. So every one person that comes in and gets the hands-on, I get them the basics, just to get started. I give them all the protocols they need for their specific equipment, and then they have access to me, and I coach them along for the next, like I say, 6 months. And I have students, I've still talked to on a monthly basis from 10, 11 years ago. So for me personally, it's about finding that good training and that support system as well. Because if you don't have somebody, and I think I've heard you talk about this on the podcast, is you've had people that have taken classes, they still need to ask you questions. They still, want to know. They're like, hey man, should I do this? How does this work? I'm seeing this. This is something I've never seen before. If you don't have support afterwards, you're just guessing. And if you do that in any field, you're making a mistake right off the bat. So find the education, get the equipment, and find the support.
Speaking of training, and I know you kind of went through like the process of what it is. It's a 2-day. Do you need to show it? Would I have to show you proof of like, hey, I already have a machine, XYZ approval, town approval before we get the training, or can we just sign up and get the training done first and then worry about all the other like ordinances and stuff like that?
I think people go about it all different ways. Some people call me up and they've been doing laser for a year and they're like, hey, I realize I need a lot more training. And then I'll go to their office and I'll do a private course for them there if they have their equipment. There's some people that just take the online course with me, and that's just the basics. That's me just talking to them one-on-one via Zoom, and they're just like in the planning stages. They don't know what they want to do. Then they get going and they get their business going, and then they have me come out and do the training out there. So and then we also have the classroom portion where you'll come to the classrooms and, maybe you don't have your equipment yet. And, that's a good opportunity to come play around with 3 or 4 different lasers and see which one's going to be right for you. And then we do the coaching afterwards. So helping get your business going, helping to get your marketing running, helping to, whatever it needs, the protocols and all that stuff set up. So everybody takes a little bit different approach. And I try to I always call our school like a boutique style of training where I can pretty much train anybody at any stage of where they're at. There's vets that I'm training, the continuing education courses. There's people adding SMP to their current practice. There are people adding cosmetic removal to their current practice. There's people that want a new skin rejuvenation with their tattoo removal lasers that we will do continuing education courses with. So it's really kind of like a custom training that I provide. It's taxing, believe me. Like I'm only one man, so like it's definitely a lot of work. But I feel like if I am there for people, that the longevity of the industry grows and people are doing things the right way. And that gets into your other part of talking about, regulations and states and stuff like that. Like, do I need to get it approved with the state? Every state's different. In Canada, anybody can do it here. Where I'm at in Toronto right now. If you are in New York, there are recommendations by the state, and there's regulations for hair removal that people put on tattoo removal that do not pertain to tattoo removal. So you have to be careful and learn how to navigate that. But you get into, states like North Carolina, you get into Ohio, California. These are doctor nurses only states. So every state has, their little regulations. So when somebody emails me, one of the first things I ask is like, where are you from? All right, here's your state regulations. I need you to know exactly what the scope of practice you can do. And if you are going to plan doing a business, I would start getting these things in place before you even take the training, because you want to make sure you have those established. I really like it when people are ready to go when they come in, maybe not have the equipment yet because they learned so much about the equipment, but have their business model, their ideas, their website, all that stuff ready to go, because then I can help them jump in and they can hit the ground running. If you don't have that, sometimes there's a gap there and you're like 6 months before your business is open, you might forget a lot of what I trained you on, and you miss out on all the coaching as well.
Yeah, when you speak about all the depending on the states, I know in New York they just changed the rules and the guidelines, because it was like they were running rampant. And I remember seeing like stuff online, like people were getting these 2nd degree, 3rd degree burns on their head, and this is specifically just S&P. I'm not talking about even like regular tattoo.
Regular tattoo removal was good.
Yeah,
the S&P ones were messed up.
They were like getting these like 3rd degree burns on their scalp, and then the next thing you know, it's kind of like, no, you can't. Not anyone can just open offer laser. Like now it's got to be under certain whatever, like doctors or something like that. So like they made it incredibly, like they put some good regulations on it to make sure that people are not out there just burning.
I mean, it's always been like that. To be honest with you, New York has been very lenient. But I've been working in New York for many, many years, and I would say probably about 70% of the people doing tattoo removal professionally are students of mine here. I did consulting with Jeff with Clean Slate, where they had like 9 locations. I've done consulting with some of the bigger brands, that developed early on here. So we've been very in tune with the regulations here. And if you were to call the medical board back then, they would say, no, you cannot do it. And what you would have to do is now hire a lawyer, and your lawyer would have to go in and say, all right, give me those actual statutes. And believe me, I have probably about 100 emails from the medical board. They're saying, Lorenzo, please stop asking us about regulations. We've already answered this for you. But I do it just because I need to stay on top of it in case there are changes that I'm not aware of. And so what happens is they've always wanted you to do these certain things. They just don't have any statutes for it. So now they call it recommendations. And so if you talk to the medical board or the health board, yeah, they're like, I will shut you down for any reason I want to shut you down. But hey, follow these recommendations. And it's like the mob, like telling you like, hey, you don't have to pay me, but you might want to pay me, so that we abide by them. We go above and beyond what the regulations are with training and certification and, medical directorship, and making sure that we are way above board so that we don't have any issues. And then it also shows people like, hey, if you want this to be a long-lasting career for you, just do what they want you to do. That's simple. Just do what they want you to do. Don't try to jive around it. Don't try to like find loopholes and stuff like that, because you might ruin it for everybody in the end.
Don't be trying to pull a Tony Stark's, develop your own laser.
Hey, I tried that. I went through the FDA approval, all that stuff, and what I realized,
I'm talking about, in your garage.
Yeah. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah.
So, Lorenzo, in every industry, there's always going to be constant innovation, whether it be S&P, tattooing, and laser aesthetics. I want to know, how is it and what is the plan for Inkless to stay ahead of the curve?
Tell you our secrets, man. What are you talking? Can't put it out there like that. Come on. No, we have big plans, but I will say the one thing that we are doing to change the perception of tattoo removal is being very supportive and educating every person that comes to our door. So just like my students, I educate each one of my clients that come in. Our techs are very good at explaining every stage of the process, making sure they have the right aftercare stuff, making sure that they are getting a call the next day and being supportive, make sure that they can go and do a QR code on our aftercare card and see what do adverse reactions look like and what do normal reactions look like, so they're not scared and they don't freak out and they're not going on WebMD and playing, Dr. Google stuff. So one thing is about service, customer service, and education. That's something where, we have our techs in New York are, they each have a decade under their belt of laser tattoo removal. They are professionals at the very best. We do bring some people in and we train them in-house as well. But everybody that we do, it's all about the customer service. It's all about the education process. This, before I got on the podcast, I go with each one of my employees. I go through the day. I talk about anything I see that might be an issue with our clients. So it's not just throwing them out there and saying, hey, use these settings. There's a lot of companies out there that just use the same settings over and over again, or they use really low settings because they can't trust their staff to not go rogue or do something that's not in their protocol. For us, we have seasoned technicians. So when they see a certain reaction, they know what to do. When they hear something a client says, they know how to help them with the aftercare or what settings to use to make sure that we avoid any problems. And so, yeah, it's really our secret sauce is just education and experience and having the right equipment, having multiple pieces of equipment. That's one thing that you don't see in a lot of clinics is we don't just use one laser or one technology. There's times when people have application scarring. There's 2 times that people have different skin types. There's times when a tattoo could get stuck a little bit and it's just not moving, and you need to be aggressive in different ways, whether it's CO2 fractional, whether it's bringing in the combination of Q-switch and Pico technology. There's products and stuff. So we're always innovating. Even, I won't say where our next project is because it's going to be coming out soon, but we got some really cool stuff coming out for just different types of tattoo styles that are being removed. So our secret sauce is just experience, always learning, never just feeling comfortable with the status quo, reinventing our protocols. I mean, that's it, that's the future. Technology, there'll be other lasers that come out, and I'm pretty in tune. And there's Phantom lasers, all these different things coming out, they say, but there's nothing that I've seen that's going to trump what we currently have, and there, we would love to see other stuff coming out, but we are like the pinnacle of technology. And if there is something new comes out, believe me, we'll be at the forefront of it.
Dope. Lorenzo, before we wrap things up, let the listeners know where they can find you on social media, or if they want to get any information in regards to training to become a laser tattoo removal technician.
Yeah, I think let's just keep it simple, man. If you are interested in treatments, go to inkless.laser, which is our Instagram tag. Message us there. You can go on our website, obviously, inklesstattooremoval.com. For training and stuff. If you want to, and I would want to talk to you about this later too. I'd love to be able to do classes at the current, when people are teaching SMP, maybe have a guest speaker or something like that. If anybody's interested in having me guest speak about tattoo removal for SMP, let me know. You can reach me at the letter I, the word laser, LASER Academy. That's our Instagram, or internationallaseracademy.com. And that's how you can reach me, man.
Outstanding. Lorenzo, again, I appreciate you for taking some time, come on the podcast, drop some gems, clearing some things up for us in regards to laser tattoo removal. I do appreciate you. And again, guys, if you want to have Lorenzo come out and talk to your students that you're teaching, because this is information that we do need. As you guys know, a lot of new artists are coming out, and even some old artists that just haven't really grasped the technique and they're just producing botched work. At least you now have this information, or you have the source to go to get the accurate information and or training. And you can have them come talk to your students. You want to put them out there with as much information as they possibly have, because it's just going to create a more better successful SMP artist.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you. And, letting me have access to more information on SMP. The more I get, the better I get at it, at removing it. The better the synergy is between the two industries. So thank you again for having me on. Thank you for being a great professional, man. I love what you're doing with the podcast. It's great.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. Likewise. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Scalp Solutions Podcast. Until the next time, peace.